Picture this. You're 230 pounds, built like a tank but not a runner. You've never gone more than a few miles in one stretch. Now, you're standing on a small running track, about to attempt 100 miles in a single day. There's no roaring crowd, no camera crews, no finish line archway, just a quiet park, a 1-mile loop, and a folding chair holding your modest supplies. The sun hasn't fully risen yet, but already the air feels cool and damp against your skin. A few birds are waking up in the trees that surround the course. You glance around and see a mix of competitors, some lean and wiry, with months of training in their legs, others casual joggers looking for a personal challenge. By the time you hit mile 70, the bones in your feet will be fractured. Your urine will be the color of rust. Your body will scream to stop. And yet, you'll keep moving forward. That's exactly what David Goggins did. And this is the story of how and why he ran 100 miles on broken legs. It was 2005. David Goggins was already a Navy SEAL, a role that demands more mental toughness than most people will ever experience. But this wasn't about military pride or athletic glory. This was personal. Months earlier, tragedy had struck. A helicopter carrying several of his closest friends had crashed in Afghanistan during Operation Red Wings. The news gutted him. These weren't just teammates. They were brothers, men he had trained with, laughed with, suffered alongside. He couldn't bring them back, but he could honor them. He decided to raise money for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, which provides scholarships to the children of fallen soldiers. In Goggins' mind, it had to be something extreme, something that would hurt, something that would force him into the same kind of mental battlefield they had faced every day. That something became the Badwater 135, a 135-mile ultramarathon through Death Valley in the middle of summer, where the heat alone breaks even seasoned runners. But there was a problem. You couldn't just sign up for Badwater. You had to qualify by proving you could run 100 miles. The only race available in time? The San Diego One Day, a quiet, almost obscure event where runners circled a 1-mile loop for 24 hours. Here's the insane part. Goggins was not an endurance runner. At the time, he weighed about 230 pounds from years of heavy weightlifting. His body was built for power, not for hours of repetitive impact. Most people who take on a 100-mile race train for months, gradually building up mileage, learning how to eat on the move, experimenting with shoes, and figuring out how to survive blisters, cramps, and dehydration. Goggins had only a few days to prepare. He didn't buy specialized running shoes. He didn't stock up on gels, electrolyte powders, or fancy hydration packs. His race kit was almost laughable. A folding chair, a pack of Myoplex protein shakes, one sleeve of chocolate chip cookies. That was it. No crew, no strategy, just stubborn determination. The San Diego One Day didn't start with a gunshot or loud music. The runners simply gathered at the starting point and began moving. The track wound through a small park, lined with trees that offered bits of shade. The early air was crisp, and the chatter of competitors mixed with the rhythmic sound of feet hitting the pavement. Some runners were metronomes, tall, lean, steady. Others moved with a relaxed confidence that only comes from countless training miles. Goggins stood out, heavier, more muscular, wearing plain shoes that would soon become a torture device. The first 10 miles were easy. The morning passed quietly. By mile 20, he felt good. At mile 30, the adrenaline began to fade, replaced by a steady ache in his calves and shins. At mile 40, the discomfort grew sharper, a deep, throbbing pressure in his feet. By mile 60, things got bad. His feet had swollen so much that his shoes felt a full size too small. Blisters formed under his toes and along his heels. By now, they had burst, leaving raw skin exposed, each step grinding into tender flesh. And then, the moment. A sharp, cracking pain in his foot, followed by a sickening awareness that something was very wrong. He didn't know it then, but the small metatarsal bones had fractured from the constant pounding. The pain forced him into an awkward stride, throwing his hips and knees off balance. Every step felt like a lightning bolt shooting up his legs. By mile 70, his body was in full rebellion. His thighs locked, his lower legs barely bent. His breathing became shallow. And then came the most alarming sign. His urine turned red. His kidneys were under serious strain. At last, he gave in to the need to sit. He collapsed into his folding chair, the cool metal pressing into his back. The world seemed quieter here, away from the track. In front of him, half a sleeve of cookies, a couple of shakes, a bottle of water. He stared at them without reaching. His mind began making deals. You've done enough. Nobody would blame you if you stopped. You're injured. This is dangerous. And yet another voice cut through. What about them? The men in the helicopter. The families waiting at home. You said you would honor them. Then came other memories, ones from years earlier. The nights as a kid when he hid from his abusive father. The mornings when he'd look in the mirror, ashamed of the person staring back. The day he decided to stop being that man and become a Navy SEAL. He knew that quitting here would take him back to that version of himself. The one who looked for exits instead of ways through. He pulled a roll of duct tape from his bag. Slowly, carefully, he wrapped his feet and ankles layer by layer until the tape felt like a crude brace. It wasn't comfortable. The edges dug into his skin, but held the broken bones steady inside his shoes. Standing was like lifting a building. His legs trembled under the weight. But he took one step, and then another, and another. From this point on, it wasn't running. It was survival. He broke the race into micro goals. Get to the next cone, make it to the water table. Just one more lap. The sun was beginning to sink. Long shadows stretched across the track. Other runners glanced at him with disbelief. Some looked away, not wanting to see the state he was in. A few told him to stop before he did permanent damage. That only fueled him. This was taking souls in action, proving the doubters wrong by doing exactly what they said you couldn't. Hour after hour, he shuffled forward. 90 miles, 91, 92. His world shrank to the sound of his shoes scraping the pavement and the rhythm of his breath. Finally, after 19 grueling hours, David Goggins crossed the 100-mile mark. There was no crowd, no medal, no triumphant music, just a man standing on the other side of his limits. His feet were broken, his legs were swollen, his body was wrecked, but his mind was stronger than ever. He ended up in the hospital. The doctors told him the injuries would take weeks to heal, but to him, this was a victory. It was proof that the mind can push the body far beyond what you think is possible. Proof that pain is a doorway, not a dead end. Goggins says, when you think you're done, you're only at 40% of what you're capable of. The other 60% lives on the far side of suffering. Once you've been there, you'll never see yourself the same way again. This race is just one chapter in Can't Hurt Me. If you want the rest, from his childhood to Hell Week to more impossible challenges, watch my full audiobook summary here on the channel. You'll find the link in the description. And if you want more breakdowns like this every week, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the next time you feel like quitting, remember, you're probably only at 40%. Stay strong. Stay hard.